Okay, right. I think got that sorted out. We shall start again. Welcome, welcome, welcome to the Rock's first webinar, as we said. So on the screen, we have the lovely Sophia, and she's extra big on my screen. I don't know whether it's my screen or whether she's an extra person. We've got Kathy and we've got Dan. That's going to do a quick introduction to them. But just before I do that, just to let you know that this is going to be a short webinar, 45 minutes. And we're going to be just chatting through some logistics on what is going to be happening next Thursday. I know some of you are already signed up. That's fantastic. This is an opportunity for people also who are just still on the fence. Hopefully we can get you off the fence on the right side, and we'll see you next Thursday as well. So we're going to just chat around some logistics, as I say, for the next few minutes. And then I'm going to show you the introductory alpha video. I'll tee that up in about 10-15 minutes, and then we're just going to finish. That's just around 20 minutes, and then 20 minutes long, and then for the last 5 minutes, any questions, and then we will be done. You'll be tucked up in bed, ready for the 9 o'clock news. No problem whatsoever. Hope you've got your heating on. If you haven't, God bless you. Put a jumper on. And we are going to get things started by just giving a brief introduction to our guest. We'll start with Dan. Tell us where you're from, Dan, and why you're here.
Yeah, hi, I'm Dan. I am here because a while ago now, I can't remember when, but I joined and did the Alpha course. I've done it twice. So I joined, experienced doing the Alpha course twice. With Kathy and Ali, and I'm down in Devon, so I did it over sort of a lockdown period, and I brought some friends along with me, and it was just a good experience to find out lots of information and ask lots of questions about what the Alpha course is and what it is, and it was I found it very, very enjoyable and insightful.
Fantastic. What would you say, Dan, did you come away with, whether the first or second time? How different were you?
I think that one of the reasons why I wanted to do it again, I think, is because I'm quite not a slow processor, but it takes me a while to sort of process stuff and information and take on board everything. So I wanted to come back the second time when I finished it, I came away with a lot. Just not about, I think obviously the first time was scary, sort of, a bit of what's all this about, and and for me it was, I came away, one thing I think was, it wasn't about, for me it wasn't about religion. It was more about understanding what faith is, right. And that it's it's not a scary coming in and you're gonna get a sort of blasted and all this
Bible bashed.
Bible bashed. It wasn't. It was
bash you on the head with our Bibles because we were online. But we're going in person next Thursday, so that's an option. I was going to ask you actually, just you talked about the kind of scare factor. I think I was thinking actually you were going to say about being probably apprehensive about other people being in the room. Was that a factor for you?
No, because for me, I thought, well, there's other people that are going to be in the room that are going to have the same sort of, I suppose, vulnerability that I am. That actually, what am I doing here? People are going to sort of judge me. But actually, every time that the team and everyone that was sort of the leaders of the groups and everything like that, it was fantastic. I was made to feel really safe in a way that I could ask, whatever questions and just have really good sort of debates, and it was really interesting. And the other people's feedback, and questions that they asked, really helped. It was good.
Fantastic. Kathy, introduce yourself. Tell everybody why you're here.
Hi, so I'm Kathy, and I am going to be leading the Alpha course this time in person. So we did it twice online during lockdown, which was, as Donna said, it was great, and it was, we we actually it exceeded our expectations. But I've only ever done, but prior to that, Alpha in person. And I'm passionate about Alpha because Alpha is how, well, 21 years ago, I was invited to an Alpha course down in London. And, you know, I went along and did the whole experience in person, actually at the home of Alpha with Nicky Gumbel in Holy Trinity, Brompton. And,
no one likes to show off, Kathy. No one likes to show off.
No. Just saying. But yeah, and you know, went along, and a friend invited me and came along with me. He'd done it a bit like Dan. He'd done it once and was so excited about it, but needed to process it again. So he invited me, and off we went, and you know, had a meal, and we're in a small group for the discussions. And you know, some of those people are still my friends now, and I would say that I'm passionate about Alpha, because for me personally, it just it changed my life for the better doing it, for sure. And I know that if I hadn't have done that when I did it, I probably wouldn't be sitting here now on this webinar. So yeah, I'm passionate about Alpha. It's a great course. It was like a jigsaw puzzle. It just, for me, it put pieces of a puzzle that I'd wondered about all my life into a bigger picture and helped me to understand it really clearly. And it's so accessible. And the social side of it, you know, the eating together and just the talking it through was just really helpful.
Brilliant.
So
Brilliant. Well, let's talk about that now. That leads on nicely to So Kathy, you're hosting the gatherings.
I
was
am
going to call them meetings. That makes it sound a little bit too formal, doesn't it? In fact, Alpha course is the kind of marketing language, but even Alpha now don't like to call it a course because it's more of an experience.
Yeah.
So we have done it online. Dan did it online a couple of times, and it's great to be able to offer that, especially if you're on the South Coast like Dan. But he's still a Nottingham Forest supporter. That's what I love about this man. I mean, he's a Forest supporter, found Jesus. I mean, what more do you want? SOS is coming in person. So you're hosting, Kathy. So you're playing a big part in hospitality. Tell us about that. What can people expect?
Okay, well, firstly, I'm also an Alpha Virgin. I'm here for the food and the banter. I grew up in a Christian house. I've been in church my whole life. So I've never felt like I needed to attend a course, but I'm interested to see what it offers because I've seen the impact on other people's lives. So I think it's good to do it, even if you already believe in God and understand the faith. So, yeah, you should have, as you signed up for it, you should have had a form to say whether or not you've got any dietary requirements. Years ago, I used to work in a preschool, and we had about 150 children at one time. And whenever the cook was off, I had to step in. So I do enjoy cooking. And when Kathy said, you know, Alpha's really about the getting together, building relationships, and in having something really nice to eat, and kind of just going on that journey with somebody and exploring a bit more about life. We were chatting, and I was like, yeah, I'd love to just come along and in the cold weather cook us all a hearty meal. So that's what I'm going to be doing. Yeah, I mean,
more than beans on toast, we can expect.
Yeah, some proper good English meals. I might do some other meals as well. But
any spoilers?
Spoilers. There'll always be pudding. There'll always be pudding, and it will always be hot.
Yeah, more than we got online, Dan.
Yeah. So just to say, if you missed that bit when you signed up about any dietary requirements or any ideas or something you don't like, and you can just let us know. It's not a problem. Every meal is adaptable. So what we want you to do is be comfortable, relax with a full belly, and enjoy yourself more than anything.
I wish I wasn't so far away.
I know. There you go. You see, that's what happened. The price you pay for online Alpha.
Yeah.
But you're a.
It was worth it. It was worth it.
Fantastic, Kathy. Just tell us just a little bit in terms of logistics of what we can expect when we come, for people who haven't been to the building before. Parking, where they come in, front door, back door, what room we're going to be in, stuff like that.
Yeah, so I'm thinking that everybody here does know where we are, but we're at 13 to 15 Welling Lane, and there is car parking at the back of the church building, along the side of the church building, so that there should be plenty of parking. We're going to be there from sort of 6:20, arrive 6:30. We're going to sit down. We're going to enjoy the lovely food that Sos has cooked. You know, there'll be drinks available, so we just want you to come and treat it like your home, like you would, and we'll serve you, and we'll all just have a nice time together. So yeah, 6:30, and then I think we're going to kick off with the film around 7:45, I believe, ish.
Okay.
So
Brilliant.
yeah, and then we'll be done. We aim to be done by sort of 9 o'clock ish latest on an evening. So yeah.
Fantastic. Well, that leads us nicely into, we've talked about the social side and the logistics. Alpha obviously is about the content. It's about exploring faith, who God is, who Jesus is, and lots of other titles like that. And they're really good and thought-provoking. We thought we'd do this webinar just to share the information, but we wanted also, another big part of this webinar was to give you not just a sample of the video, but week 1's video we're doing now, because it's a really light touch entry into what Alpha is about, but it gives you an idea of the media style, format and content that you're going to get. So I'm going to share my screen in just a second. We've got a 20-minute video. Most videos, I can't remember, I think, Dan, they were about 20-25 minutes tops, weren't they?
Yeah.
So I'm going to show you that week 1 now, so you can put your feet up, relax, and just be thinking as well during this, if there's any questions you have for us, anything we've missed, then just drop them in the chat. We've done a little trial run. We're not quite sure whether we've got the Q&A working, but if you can see a Q&A button or a chat button, if there's any questions you've got around anything to do with Alpha, particularly starting next Thursday night, then you could be banging that on now. But in the meantime, if I do this correctly, you will be watching 20 minutes of the film for the first Alpha. Here we go.
Check. Hi, I'm Nicky. Welcome to Alpha. Life is busy. Every day we ask so many questions. What should I wear? What's the weather going to be like? What's happening today? How am I going to fit everything in? But then there are those bigger questions. Like, why am I here? Where am I heading? Is this it? Is there more to life than this? These are life's big questions, but there's rarely enough time to think them through properly.
We all have different perspectives on the meaning of life and faith, and Alpha is an opportunity to explore life's big questions.
This is a great place to come together and talk about them openly and honestly. I'm Gemma.
I'm Toby.
And this is Alpha.
I go on Google.
I definitely Google.
I go on Wikipedia.
Internet.
I scroll through all the different answers, and then I try and combine it, and then make my own kind of like cornerstone.
Or smart friends.
I don't ask big life questions. It's too hard to answer.
Google or my grandmother.
I meditate or I read.
When I have a big life questions, I probably go to my family.
I haven't really had any mess of what to say.
To my mom or my dad, basically.
My mom or my dad, maybe my grand.
I get most of my answers from the library in any section there because I don't really trust the people that I'm around.
The key is always to yourself. You got to figure some things out for yourself.
If I'm confused, I go to him first. And he confuses me more.
But when it's something more personal, I try to find it within myself first.
Friends of mine told me that the first night they came to Alpha, they sat in their car for half an hour waiting and watching people going in. And eventually when they'd seen enough normal looking people going in, They thought they'd give it a try.
And one thing that might be going through your mind is, am I going to be the only one there who doesn't believe all this stuff, who's not a Christian, that doesn't go to church? Well, if that's you, then you're in the right place. Alpha is designed for people who wouldn't call themselves Christians or who are not regular churchgoers.
It might feel a bit strange to be discussing life and faith with people that you've never met before, but the best thing about Alpha is often the great friendships that are formed over the weeks.
For much of my life, I was not remotely interested in Christianity. In fact, I don't think I'd ever come to something like Alpha. I was not brought up as a Christian. My father was a secular Jew. He was an agnostic, and my mother didn't go to church, and I had no interest at all in Christianity. First of all, I just thought it was so boring. Everything to me about church, Christianity, religion was just dull and dreary, and it kind of made me feel a little bit guilty. I didn't know why, but I just didn't want to have anything to do with it. And I also thought it was untrue. I thought I'd sort of thought it through, and I'd come up with these intellectual objections, and I called myself, very pretentiously, I called myself a logical determinist. And I quite enjoyed arguing with people who called themselves Christians. And at university, I had a bit of a reputation for being an argumentative atheist. And I also thought it was irrelevant to my life. I couldn't see how someone who'd lived 2,000 years ago, 2,000 miles away, could have any relevance to my life today. It just seemed outdated and irrelevant. But at the same time, looking back now, I would say something was missing. I say that because I don't think I was living in the moment. I was always looking forward to the next thing in life. So when I was at school, I was thinking, when I finish my exams, maybe that will be when I'm going to really start to enjoy life. I finished my exams, and then after about 3 weeks, I started to think there's got to be more to life than this. And I thought, well, maybe when I've left school, that will be what life's all about. And then I left school, and after about 3 weeks, I started to think, there's got to be more to life than this. I thought, well, maybe the answer is to get a girlfriend. And somehow, I don't know how I managed it, but I managed to find a girlfriend. Again, after about 3 weeks, I started to think, there's got to be more to life than this. And basically, there was something missing. I was longing for more.
The actor Jim Carrey once said, "I wish everyone could get rich and famous and have everything they've ever dreamed of, so they would know that's not the answer." Some people dream of having their name in lights, of fame and fortune. Some people dream of finding happiness through relationships, careers, money, whatever it may be. But do you ever get that niggly feeling that, as good as those things are, there must be more to life?
Yeah, all too often life just doesn't turn out the way we think it should. And even when it does and we achieve our wildest dreams, it's somehow never quite enough. It just doesn't satisfy. It's like there's something missing. The comedian and actor Russell Brand said, "Drugs and alcohol are not my problem. Reality is my problem. Drugs and alcohol are my solution to fill up a hole inside me." And Jesus said, "I am the bread of life." In other words, I'm the one who fulfills the longing that's deep inside every human heart. Jesus claimed to be the one person who can satisfy that spiritual hunger.
Freddie Mercury, the lead singer of the rock group Queen, had amassed a huge fortune and attracted millions of fans. But he admitted in an interview shortly before his death that he was desperately lonely. He said this, "You can have everything in the world and still be the loneliest man, and that's the most bitter type of loneliness. Success has brought me world idolization and millions of pounds, but it's prevented me from having the one thing we all need, a loving, ongoing relationship."
Jesus said, "I am the way, the truth, and the life." Ultimately, there's only one relationship that is totally loving and goes on forever, and that's a relationship with God. And Jesus said, "I am the way to that relationship."
Maybe money?
What makes me happy? Music. Music, ice cream, and cheese.
Sleep makes me happy.
Going to the gym, seeing my friends, going to the pub, playing football.
Dogs.
Alcohol. Women. Pretty much.
The idea of life in general makes me happy.
Clothes. Women.
More to life than this?
That's a really good question.
I don't know, I can't tell you.
I think we're supposed to learn a couple of things. There's nothing more.
I'm still figuring that out, to be honest.
No. Let's live in the moment.
absolutely. I strongly believe that there's more to life than this.
No idea. Sorry.
When I was about 17, I was sitting having a burger with two friends, and we were looking out the window and commenting on a few of the stores across the street, and I suddenly realized that I couldn't read any of the signs, even if I squinted. So I asked if I could borrow one of my friend's pair of glasses, and as soon as I put them on, I realized I could see everything, like colors, shapes, words. I was amazed at how everything was so clear. And I could see before, but now I could really see. And to me, that's the best way to describe the difference that Jesus makes. Jesus is the lens through which we see God. And he's also the lens by which we see the world in a totally different way.
Jesus said, I am the truth. Some people's response to a Christian might be, well, it's great for you, you found meaning and purpose in your life, but it's not for me. But when you think about it, that's not actually a logical position, because if Christianity is true, it's of vital importance to every one of us. And if it's not true, it's not great for us, because it means we're deluded. C.S. Lewis was one of the great intellectual giants of the 20th century, probably best known as the author of the Chronicles of Narnia. He said this: Christianity, if false, is of no importance, and if true, of infinite importance. The only thing it cannot be is moderately important. I come from a family of lawyers, so naturally I wanted to look at the original documents and sources. I never really looked at the evidence before, and I was astonished at how much evidence there is for the life, death, and resurrection of Jesus. For me, it was through reading these documents that we find in the New Testament that I came to the conclusion, it's true. One of the last cases I did as a lawyer was in the Court of Appeal in front of Lord Denning, an absolutely brilliant mind, perhaps the greatest judge of the 20th century. He said on one occasion that his Bible was his most tattered book in his library. He'd examined the evidence really carefully, and he came to the conclusion, it's true. One former professor of history at Oxford University described the resurrection as the best attested fact in history. I hadn't realized how many of the pioneers of modern science were believers. Descartes, Newton, Kepler, Galileo, Locke, Copernicus, Faraday, Kelvin, Pasteur. Francis Collins, one of the greatest scientists of our time, was director of the Human Genome Project, mapping the 3 billion letters in the human DNA, considered by many to be the most significant scientific undertaking of our time. He describes how he encountered Jesus and came to believe in the truth of Christianity.
Well, in the home where I grew up, faith was not something that was talked about very much. My father was a professor of drama, my mother a playwright. When I went to college and those discussions in the dorm late at night about religion began to occur, I had no particular reason to attach value to a faith system. It had never been something I was familiar with or had internalized at all. And I assumed that any religious feelings that anyone held must be on the basis of some emotional experience, and I didn't trust those, or on the basis of some childhood indoctrination, which I felt I was fortunate to have missed. I loved the experience of learning about the human body and all of the components of that, and I particularly loved being introduced to genetics. But then I ended up in the medical school curriculum sitting at the bedside of patients with diseases. This was no longer an abstract study of molecules and organ systems. These were real people. And one afternoon, one of my patients, a wonderful elderly woman, much like a grandmother, who had very bad heart disease. She had a particularly bad episode of chest pain while I was with her. She got through it, and at the end of that, explained to me how her faith was the thing that helped her in that situation. She realized that the doctors around her weren't really giving her that much help, but her faith was. And after she finished her own very personal description of that faith, she turned to me, and I had been silent, and she looked at me quizzically, and she said, "What do you believe, doctor?" And ultimately, I had to admit to myself that her question had made me realize that I had arrived at an answer to the most important issue that we humans ever deal with. Is there a God? And I had arrived there without ever really looking at the evidence. And I was supposed to be a scientist. If there's one thing scientists claim they do is to arrive at conclusions based upon evidence. and I hadn't taken the trouble to do that. I was greatly assisted by a pastor who lived down the road, who I went and asked about all this, and who gave me a copy of C.S. Lewis's wonderful book, Mere Christianity. Because here was an Oxford scholar, a prodigiously developed intellect, who had traveled the same path. Within those pages, I realized for the first time that one can come to belief on a rational basis, and that in fact, given the many pointers that one sees around oneself in terms of the universe and it having a beginning, and its fine-tuning in terms of the way in which all those constants that determine the behavior of matter and energy seem to have been set just in a certain very precise range to make life possible. And many other things, including my beloved mathematics and why they actually work anyway to describe the universe, something that makes you think the Creator must have been a mathematician. That brought me then to the person of Jesus Christ as a person who was historically extremely well documented. That was news to me. I thought Christ was as much myth as history, and I realized after reading more about it, this was a historical figure upon which we have a great deal of evidence for his existence and his teachings, and even his rising from the dead in a literal way. That day at my patient's bedside started a journey for me. A journey that I was reluctant to begin, but I felt I needed to. A journey that I thought would result in strengthening my atheism, but to my surprise, resulted in my conversion.
There's a difference between knowing facts about someone and really knowing them personally. Now, I've known my husband Phil for 3 years now, but suppose if before we met, I found him on a website called The Amazing Man. Now, there's no doubt I would have looked at him and thought, okay, I'm intrigued. But what if each page was dedicated to his amazing abilities, his sparkling personality, his tender heart, his extraordinary intelligence, and his cooking abilities? Well, I would think, wow, he does sound like an amazing person. But that's head knowledge. But I also have the privilege of being married to him, and I know that he's an amazing person, which is knowledge that comes from experience of a relationship, and that's heart knowledge.
When Jesus said, I am the truth, he was talking about more than just a kind of intellectual truth. The Hebrew understanding of truth was truth as experienced. And there's a big difference between a kind of intellectual knowledge and a personal knowledge, between your head and your heart. So when someone says, I know Jesus is the truth, they're not just talking about being convinced of the evidence. They're also talking about experiencing a relationship with the risen Jesus Christ. So Jesus said, I am the way, the truth, and lastly, he said, I am the life. I have come that you may have life and have it to the full. Jesus came to deal with the things in our lives that stop us from enjoying life to the full, the things that spoil our lives.
I hate shopping. I loathe it. I think I'm allergic to shopping. But occasionally my wife Pippa persuades me to go shopping, and just after Christmas, it was the sales, and she persuaded me to go shopping. And we went into the shop and we bought this very nice new sweater, same colour as all my other sweaters. And we left the shop and we went to buy a present for her. And we went into this ghastly shop. It was so crowded. It was unbelievable. And even Pippa had had enough and she said, okay, we're leaving. So we went to leave. And as we left, the security alarm went off. And the security guys moved in very quickly and they stopped us all from leaving. And like the crowd that was trying to leave was stopped and the crowd that was trying to come in was stopped. And we were there right in the middle. The 6 of us who were going through the security at that one time were all taken off and sectioned off from all the rest. And they wanted to see which one of the 6 of us had set off the alarm. So they sent one of them through, and that was fine. They obviously hadn't set it off. Then they sent the next one through. They obviously hadn't set it off. Then the 3rd, then the 4th. None of them set it off. So it was left with Pippa and I were standing there, and I thought, oh my goodness, I'm married to a shoplifter. It must be Pippa who's got set off the alarm. So they sent her through, and she didn't set it off. So I thought, oh my goodness, I've obviously got something. Someone must have planted something on me. I'm going to be arrested. I'm going to be sent to prison. All the crowd were watching, both sides. They were just watching this criminal who'd been caught going through. So they went through, and as I went through, the alarm went off. They took me to the side. They opened up my rucksack on my back, And there they found this sweater from the other shop with the tags still on it. I felt so guilty. That was like false guilt. I also sometimes experience true feelings of guilt because I do things that are not right, that are not good. And this is the wonderful news that God loves you and he loves me. God came in the person of his Son, Jesus Christ, to die for you and for me. And on the cross, he took all of your guilt, all of my guilt, everything you've ever done wrong, everything I've ever done wrong, said wrong, thought wrong, and he died in our place in order that we could be forgiven. And forgiveness, C.S. Lewis said, it's like a recording of our life wiped completely clean. And when we receive that forgiveness, we find life, and life in all its fullness. And that's what Jesus wants for you and for me. Life in all its fullness. Life at its very, very best.
I think for so many years, I always just strived to be strong in myself. And it was as if that all I needed was me and my buddies and, we'd be like invincible. But the truth is, none of us are. And I don't want to do this thing called life. I don't want to do it on my own. And it kind of feels like my longing for this light inside is now stronger than my fear of what others might think. And people often ask, well, doesn't that make faith like a crutch? And, well, maybe, but, what does a crutch do? A crutch helps you stand and it makes you stronger. And in that case, sure, I need a bit of that. But especially when it's so much more than that. When this faith inside is also like a backbone, helping me stand tall and helping me be strong when I'm really up against it, facing those odds, whether it's on a mountain or stuck in some jungle or just dealing with the storms, with the storms of life. Sure, I need it, I need that. But at heart, my Christian faith says that I'm known to Christ, bought at a price, blessed with light. Faith says that we're loved, regardless of our mess, regardless of how many times we fall down, and that Jesus somehow picks me up. And sure, I'll reach out to that. Why wouldn't I?
I used to think Christianity was boring, untrue, and irrelevant. But when I read about Jesus, I realized he was anything but. Jesus said he's the way to God. He's the one who brings meaning and purpose to your life. He said he's the truth. He said he's the life, that true fulfillment is found in a relationship with God through him.
Alpha is a place where you can be yourself. You can say what you think and challenge everything. No question is too complex or too simple. And what your point of view is as important as anyone else's.
And over the weeks ahead, we are going on a journey together, an adventure to explore the questions of life, faith, and meaning. Think of it this way. If you live to be 70, you're going to spend 20 years and 3 months asleep, 10 years and 5 months watching TV, 5 years and 9 months in some form of transportation, 7 years and 6 months eating and drinking. You have approximately 570,000 hours left to live. So why not spend less than 24 of them asking life's biggest questions?
Welcome to Alpha.
Okay, so there we go. I'm just going to stop sharing my screen there. So that is a sample of what you're getting yourselves in for if you've signed up, or if you're thinking of signing up. Basically, in a nutshell, you've got 3 things going on a Thursday night. You come along, you have some great food cooked by our very own Lissos, who is not just a replacement chef for a nursery. She goes far beyond that, and you will be first-hand witnesses to that. You'll be watching a video very similar to that. Certainly the same content in terms of sort of the same format, different content, but that's the presentation style. And then there's an opportunity where we're just going to sit around tables and just ask each other questions, pertinent questions to the video, because we haven't all got the answers, but together we've got a lot more. So that is what's happening. Hopefully that's been helpful to you. If you experience any technical difficulties watching that video, then we can get a link out to you so you can watch it in your own time at your own leisure. I'm just going to go to the guys. I don't think there's any of the questions. I'm going to go to the guys just to give a final thought. Maybe for people who are still on the fence, maybe you're watching this video back and it's literally like a day or two to go before Thursday. I don't know whether that's you, but guys, if you can just give a final thought to the people who are watching this, and then we will close off on time. Let's go to Dan first. Dan, anything to add, to say?
Yeah, I would. I don't know if my video's on, but it doesn't show that I'm there. So I don't know if you can hear me. Can you hear me? All right?
I can see you. You're all good. We're all good.
Okay, cool. Something gone wrong on my screen. Anyway, yeah, I suppose a final thought for me would be to anyone that's on the fence or worried about, like we said earlier, being Bible bashed. I would sort of say, if you can go along with an open mind and just use it as even if it's just to go along and to collect information, to be able to make some decisions, or just to sort of think, well, maybe after I've collected that information and after the Alpha course going along, maybe there might be certain things that you notice, along your journey, and that, yeah, I mean, after the second course, I mean, I'm in a stage now where actually, did I know what was going to happen after the Alpha course? No. Do I believe now that, God has a plan for me? Yes, I do. Do I believe that he's going to reveal all that plan to me at once? No. He just gives us the information that we need at that time, to know what we need to know, because he's got a plan set out for us. So, if he gave us it all at once, it would be boring, wouldn't it? So, maybe just go along, take some information with an open mind, meet some really cool people, and get some free food. What's not to love about that?
Love it. And Alpha unashamedly says, that they are. It's direct information, but it's non-confrontational. There's no pressure. Alpha is very big on zero pressure. So that fits in with what you just said there, Dan. Right. Okay, Kathy. Final thoughts. Feel like Jerry Springer here, but anyway. Go on.
Yeah, I mean, I'm really looking forward to meeting everybody that comes, and I think, like Dan said, it's just a no pressure environment to come along to ultimately get away from the busyness and the distractions of everyday life, and to just give yourself 2 or 3 hours to sit in good company, eat good food, and to discuss some questions that you've maybe had all your life. And just discuss them in a safe environment. And as I said, I've my group that I did Alpha with, I'm still friends, for the last 20 odd years, I'm still friends with them. We still keep in touch because you make those friendships. So yeah, I'm really looking forward to it. And I really hope that you will all come along and sign up.
Brilliant. So,
hi.
Mute, there she is.
Sorry about that. Yeah, so final thought. Early 90s, there was a film called Little Rascals, and there was a character in it called Alpha. So that's what I've been thinking about for the last 5 minutes. I just want to get that out.
No relevance, is it?
Yeah,
to your
I'm going somewhere. I just wanted to share that was been continuing on my mind. Those of you that are seeing Little Rascals will probably laughing now. Look, knowledge is power, isn't it? And the fact that you're here tonight shows a small, tiny, teeny bit of curiosity. And I'm the kind of person that likes to know my options, like to collect all the information before I make a decision. So it's great what Dan says about, even if you're just collecting information, so that you can make a formal decision. Because if we want to have an opinion on whether we agree with something or not, it's important to have all the facts. And what Alpha is going to do is it's going to give you the facts, it's going to give you the food, and it's going to give you the friendship. And you can go away from that and make your own decisions, knowing that you've done all you can to look into this and consider it. So what's there to lose? What's the worst that can happen? Free heating, like I say, free heating, free food, free friendships. Not that you pay for friendships, but I'm going to stop now because they're not.
Yeah, I like that. Facts, food, friendship, and an option for you to have some faith. But there's no pressure on that. I would just say, as well, on top of everything else, just before we close out, now you've got the information in terms of where you're going, what you're doing, who's cooking your food, and what it's going to be like. You've seen the quality of the film. You know how long it's going to be. You know you're going to be sitting around a table chatting, really relaxed with a drink, maybe over pudding. Maybe over pudding we could have some start the questions. You pretty much know what's going to happen. I'm just wondering whether anybody out there, even if you're still on the fence, because you know so much now, you could think, actually, I'm going to bring a friend with me. Would love you to do that. Even if you signed up and you're thinking, right, I've got a bit of a fuller graph now. What we wouldn't want you to do is to get 1 week in, 2 weeks in, 3 weeks in and think, oh, I wish I'd have brought somebody. I think you know whether you could bring someone. Now, there'll be other Alpha courses, but why not take the opportunity now and just have a think about who else you might be able to invite to come with you. That would be absolutely so cool to do. Right, okay, we are 2 minutes over. We're going to leave it there. Thank you so much for coming on all the way from the South Coast. Dan, thank you. Only a few presses of a button as well, but geographically, come a long way. Kathy is actually up in Manchester. I don't know whether you said that, but she is at Bible College. So she's got all the answers. Well, some of them. And Sophs is in good old Nottingham with me. So thank you all for coming. And thank you for being on this webinar. Any questions? I think you've all got Kathy's details. If not, you can just get in touch with us through the website, church website, info@the-rock.org.uk. Thanks for being with us. God bless and have a good night.
I got in with the wrong crowd and I started to pinch cars, burgle houses, me and my friends become known as very high profile thieves, really. I used to carry big knives, the big knives to the smaller knives down my waist, and I was the kind of person where if you pulled a knife out, I would use it. I ended up stabbing someone in the head. I ended up stabbing someone, just missing his heart and going through the top of his shoulder, the top of his chest and his shoulder where he dropped to the floor, and so I was on the run for 2 attempted murders. And then when I went to prison, I had such a hatred for the system, and I couldn't handle being told what to do, couldn't handle prison officers mucking me about. When I went out on association, I got to prison officer and I stabbed them. And then this led to me going into maximum security prisons, being put on CSC. It's where they feed you through a hatch in the door. There's no physical contact, so they have to have riot shields and riot gear on. And that was my life for a long, long time, basically. And I just was going from prison to prison, prison to prison. But then I ended up going to Long Lartin in Worcestershire. And when I was in there, I ended up going in an Alpha course. Never heard of an Alpha course, didn't know anything. And I just remember walking in because it sent me down. I sat down on a chair and I thought, oh no, it's a Christian thing. And we'd just go there every week and I would argue. And the pastor, I remember he come to me. He said, right, I'm going to say a few scriptures first before we pray. And one of them was, no one's righteous, not one. We all fall short of the glory of God. And then he said the verses about Jesus and explained a bit why he died on the cross for sinners and stuff. And then he said, pray. So I started praying. And I said, God, if you're real, come into my life because I hate who I am. And nothing happened. But then as I was talking to the pastor, I started to feel this energy feeling in my stomach. And it started to raise up and raise up and raise up and raise up. And I just broke out into uncontrollable tears. And I just sobbed. And it just... right there. Because that was a change in my whole life. I knew God was real. And no one will change that now. And then I remember running on the wing. People clearly knew that I would become a Christian. So I actually helped them on another 2 Alpha courses. And then I got released. I've been in a prison where because you would have thought that the prison where I stabbed the prison officers would have been the last prison to have me. But they were the first. That's how God works. The best thing for me is going in prisons and helping the lads in prison and trying to tell them about God. I've got 4 kids and they're my life. And what upsets me is because now I know that back then, if I had the kids, they wouldn't have had a good upbringing. And now they sit on the night and have Bible studies with their dad. Have Bible studies with their dad. Have a life. They're beautiful. And my life, and this probably is my wife and my kids are the best gift, apart from the grace God's given me, is the best gift He'll ever give me. Didn't expect to cry like that. Recovered now.